Hola amigos, and welcome back to another episode of La Vida Verde podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Human, here at Finca Vida Verde. My guest today is Robin Shaw. Robin is a poet, a mother, a life image and design coach, and a climate and social justice advocate. She's just released her new poetry album called Prophet's Loss. It's really lovely. We're going to have a great conversation, and stay tuned. Check out our Patreon for behind the scenes, and also we're going to ask Robin to do some poetry, and we hope you enjoy. Robin Shaw.
Human.
Welcome to La Vida Verde podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, let's start. Let's get into this.
Yeah.
You number one, you have a new poetry album.
Yes.
Which is very exciting. We're going to talk more about that.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I want to know any relation to Tommy Shaw?
No. As far as I know, the story goes, Justin's grandmother emigrated from Hong Kong to Canada and basically picked a name that would help them to blend in.
That's your married name?
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, really? So they moved from Hong Kong and they're like, we need a gringo name.
Unfortunately, there was a ton of racism then, as there still continues to be to some degrees now in Canada, in especially like rural parts of Canada. And it was important to them to be able to blend in whatever ways they could. So at least with their name, it was a way to integrate into the Canadian culture and hopefully give, opportunities for the kids. So that's my understanding of how we have Shaw as our name. When I met Justin, I was like, what's my name going to be? And I was like, Shaw. Okay.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So where in Canada are you all from?
So they're from Sudbury is where she emigrated to. And then
Which is where?
It's north of Toronto.
Okay.
I think I might be getting that wrong. But basically, then everybody ended up in the city. So Justin's family moved to Toronto. I'm from New York originally, but then my family moved to Toronto.
Oh, where in New York?
I was born in New York City, and I was raised in Warwick, New York, which is 2 hours northwest of the city.
Yeah, I know where Warwick is.
Yeah, I know. You're East Coast too, right?
Yeah, I'm from upstate New York. I'm from Utica.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I have a friend from Warwick, actually.
No way.
Yeah.
I haven't been back in ages, but it was a small, sweet little town to grow up in for part of my life.
Yeah, really, like New York has these little village vibes.
Yes.
It's like little East Coast village. But you mostly grew up in Canada then?
Yes. So we moved to Toronto area when I was 9. And that was a really amazing transition because it helped me. It was the first time in my life that I saw America from afar. Growing up in the U.S., I was so indoctrinated. I started school, I remember 4th grade. I was getting into fights with other kids being like, America's the greatest country in the world. How dare you say it? I was peaceful as I am. I was like very pro-America. And over many years being in Canada and having that slight distance, it helped me to have more perspective. I have this analogy of a mountain. It's hard for us to see the mountain when we're on it.
Yeah.
And that's true in our own personal lives when we're doing personal growth work, but that's also true in circumstances like this. Like when I was in the US and indoctrinated in that culture, it was hard for me to see it for what it was.
Right.
But with that distance, it really helped me to have some perspective.
Got it. So why did you move to Toronto?
My parents got divorced.
Okay.
Yeah, my mom and my dad got divorced, and my mom met somebody who is living in Canada. He happens to be American, but also living in Canada. Yeah. And he has a daughter who is a year older than me, Clara. Love you, Clara. And she's amazing. Shout out to Clara. Clara's awesome. She lives in Australia now.
All right.
But for us to be a family, it made sense to live in Canada. So that's where my story took me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm amazed also, I'm still reeling. Like, I knew she's got to be related to Tommy Shaw. They look similar. They got this like vibe. And but anyways,
brother from another mother.
And you're like, and it's the story of like, well, actually it's a Hong Kong like chosen name. It's just like some random name.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And when I met your mom Day, I assume she's a hippie. Were you raised by hippies?
So kind of, yes. She is what I lovingly call a corporate hippie.
Okay.
So she was definitely in the corporate world. Like when we were growing up in Warwick, before when my parents were still together, she was going to work in the city, like in Manhattan, in Midtown. I was visiting her there all the time. She was power suits and big shoulder pads, all of it. But
I can't even see it. If you knew Day now, you would not believe it.
So classy. But she also was into yoga, and that's one of the things that her and my dad connected on. And my dad had gotten involved with integral yoga after he came back from Vietnam War. And so that was a huge part of his adjustment back into real life after the war. And it was something he and my mom bonded over. And so I grew up in a household where we had this empty room called the yoga room. And I remember being a little kid, like 5, 6, and being like, how come none of my friends, nobody else seems to have this big empty room called a yoga room? And I started doing tours of people's houses. I'd meet someone, I'd go to their house, I'd be like, can I see your whole house, please? And I would go through their whole house and be like, that's it? There's no big empty room. And I realized this is a unique thing. So we were doing yoga my whole childhood. I'm a lifelong vegetarian for that reason. And so I went to Waldorf school, which is also, for people who don't know, looks very much like a cult. Very culty.
What's culty about Waldorf?
Have you ever watched a Eurythmy performance?
No.
Oh my gosh.
No, I haven't.
How to describe Eurythmy in a few seconds. It is a physical embodiment of what the sounds of the alphabet could look like as intuited by a philosopher named Rudolf Steiner.
Right.
So every letter like F is like F. And so we would do these performances in these like long robes and something called Eurythmy slippers. And we would be like the fiery mountain. And people would be, who don't know about Eurythmy, would just be like, what the hell is happening right now?
Yeah, this sounds culty. Well, it's really interesting. I've known a lot. I've like had a lot of friends who are Waldorf teachers. And I still have a lot of friends who are Waldorf teachers, and they're really into it. And I've studied.
We keep the Eurythmy hidden.
Biodynamics and all that. I mean, Steiner's done. He had some really great contributions, but like this definitely sounds culty.
I embrace the culty aspects of my life because, as well as with the yoga, we were going to yoga ashrams all the time. And so I would be in a group of people chanting, and that was super normal to me. But then I'd bring my friend from next door, and she was like, what's happening, But I grew up chanting like the entire world is my home, and all the people in it are my family. Yeah. And that was how I was oriented to understand our world.
And that's very at odds with the America is the greatest country in the world.
Oh my gosh, so much. Definitely. I've had a lot of internal conflict growing up, especially with like modeling and
stuff. So are you, and we'll get to that. Were you an American or Canadian? Like,
well, when I was in Canada, I was the American. And when I was in the US, I was the Canadian.
Okay.
So it always felt like I didn't actually belong to either one. My belonging was always to the one that I wasn't with, which was also an interesting way to grow up because I just got used to being like the visitor or the outsider or the one who's still learning about something.
Not having exactly a
So it was really interesting to be like when I would leave one country, then I would go back to the US to visit my dad and he'd be like, oh, you're the Canadian now. And I was like, oh, that's funny because in Canada, I'm the American.
So you were going back and forth.
I was going back and forth. My parents did an amazing job making sure that I had a great relationship with my dad. And my parents are still friends to this day. Okay. My dad is here in Costa Rica and he was at the event sitting with my stepdad. Like they're buds. We put the fun and dysfunctional.
All right. Fun and dysfunctional.
We do.
That's
great.
So yeah, in New York and Canada, right
You're not that far. Yeah, Toronto and New York are not too far.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned fashion modeling. You went from how old are you when you're in Toronto?
So Toronto started at age 9 until I don't know.
And then what?
How old am I now? 37. Now then it becomes math.
No math. Let's leave the math out of this.
Yeah, many years. Many years. Middle school, high school, university. I took women's studies as well as fine art in university. And at that time I had started modeling and it was something I totally stumbled into. I thought I was going to be a hairdresser. I was working in a hair salon and the person at the front desk every day was like, Robin, when are you going to go and visit the agencies and get a contract? And I was like, I don't know, Janice, I don't know. And then I went and they offered me a contract and I was like, well, I guess I should take this seriously. And it opened up this world to me that on the one hand was really glamorous and fun and exciting and everybody's falling all over you. Oh, you're so beautiful. And I was like, oh, ego, this is so fun. And on the other hand, I was like, this is bullshit. This is terrible. This is not good for me. It's not good for the planet. Like the older I got, the more conflicted I was participating in an industry that is so ruthless. I was fortunate enough to have very positive experiences, but I know many women and young girls who don't, who are taken advantage of in all kinds of horrible ways. And so within the industry, there's the challenges, but there's an organization called Remake, which puts it beautifully about how the fashion industry has a thread to everything that's wrong in the world. They are connected to our image of ourselves and women's images of themselves. They're connected to how we use goods and the speed at which we're getting rid of clothing these days. It's estimated that people wear an item of clothing no more than 17 times before they get rid of it. And this idea of like, you know, people don't want to wear the same outfit twice in front of other people. And so there's the incredible amounts of waste. There's horrible, you know, labor conditions in the fashion industry. So over time, I learned more and more about this. And I, towards the end of my career, started to use my platform to advocate for change and awareness and education.
Great.
Yeah.
How did you do that?
Well, I got involved with organizations like Remake. There was also a group in New York called the Model Mafia, which was a group of, it was several hundred, I think it was predominantly women, using their platforms as models to advocate for change online. So using our social media to share information. The idea was that there's a lot of information that comes from scientists that's not super accessible for the mainstream person, especially young people. And so how can we take what we're hearing and learning and then create content that's more easily accessible and that people would want to consume so that they can get that information and get motivated, you know, get on board with some of these ideas, start to, you know, change some of their habits and be part of that change.
You're like you're an activist. You can't help. It's like just whatever it is you're passionate about, you're gonna go and support it. And these are all great causes, so it makes sense. So when did you stop modeling?
During the pandemic. So I had
recent.
Yeah, super recently. I had several times of thinking about walking away from it, and then it was good money. It was a good job. And I didn't know what I wanted to do yet. I was still figuring out who I was and what I was going to offer to the world beyond that.
What kind of were you like magazines or?
I was doing, oh my gosh, I did so much what's called non-recognizable. So from here down. So not me.
Like waist.
Like from, literally like
just
lips
fashion,
and chin.
Clothing.
Like Amazon, lots of stuff, like lots of websites, lots of things that was just really just your basic, like I have a kind of girl next door vibe. So I was selling like Kohl's and Sears and like all of that kind of stuff. Not the glamorous high. I mean, I did some of the like runway stuff when I was younger, and I did some cool shoots. Like I worked for Men's Vogue, and I did like, there was some cool things along there. I actually did Glamour Mexico, which was a really fun shoot. But and some like bigger jobs. But my bread and butter was like catalog.
Yeah. Just like any kind of gig. It's like musicians. You know, the private, gigs are always, they're not those glamorous, but they're like the ones that pay better. It's like the acting gigs. It's like if you got a sitcom, it may not be the best one, but or what some regular daily, theater is something that's regular, that's what you go for. Whatever gives you because you got to have a career, right?
You got to have, and it was a good job, and in that part of the industry they treat you really well. They provide healthy lunches, people are very kind, and there's a lot of respect. So it was a very positive experience, and it made it hard to leave.
So you left because of COVID? Or it was your impetus?
It was both. I mean, it was, to be fair, COVID, it was like, I don't want to say it was the nail in the coffin, but it was definitely part of, it was time for me to transition to something else. I was very unclear about what I wanted to do with my life, and modeling had been this holding pattern that at some points, like towards the end of my career, I almost regretted that I had spent so much time in that industry because I hadn't spent the time to figure out other skills that I really wanted to bring into the world beyond the organizing. I love organizing. I love activism, but that's not something I necessarily see myself making money from, especially when I do anti-racism work. That's like, it's not for me to make money off of. So that I always do volunteer.
I don't think you can make money.
Some people do. They do
really?
With like diversity and equity training and things like that. There's people, you can get involved in things. And it's not to say that I mean, there's ways I think that it's appropriate for people who hold white privilege to be involved and make money, and I think that's fine. My personal stance is I'm going to do some work that is very clearly volunteer. I'm just going to spend time doing things that are meaningful and important to me, and it's volunteer based, and that's I can afford that time. And then I'm going to put my energy into other things to make money in other ways. So through the pandemic, through a lot of sadness and depression and feeling super lost, and our lives got turned upside down. We had recently moved to Florida, which was a huge mistake.
You were living in Florida?
For 3 months. It was a very expensive vacation.
From where?
From New York. We moved from New York. Justin wanted to move to Costa Rica, and I wasn't ready yet. And I thought, oh, Florida's not that different. Florida's really different.
Yeah, it is.
It's really different. Yeah.
So you mentioned Justin. That Justin's your husband.
Justin's my husband.
And when did you guys meet?
We met in 2008 and we got married in 2011. So we're coming up on some teenage, I don't know. We always go back, and again, math. I'm like, it's been many years. We've been together for a long time. He's amazing. He's super, super supportive of my creativity. He's really supportive of me. Like, oh, it's going to make me teary. Like, he really supports me finding myself. He's amazing.
Shout out to Justin.
Justin's, he's incredible.
He's super nice guy.
Yeah. Too. Feminist and really hard worker and really amazing dad.
And so and his career also like allowed you guys to be remote, or? Yeah,
so he had started doing, I guess you could call it like a digital marketing agency for the stone fabricator space, and he's now transitioned to coaching for people working in trade businesses and helping their business to flourish, but also with an eye for how do you stay balanced in your own life.
I see it.
I know.
A little dragonfly.
I love dragonflies. Dragonflies are symbols of illusion and remembering kind of what's real.
Transformation. No?
Yeah, I love dragonflies. So his work was remote. I was ready to transition away from modeling. And when the pandemic hit and we knew we had to leave Florida because it got ugly really fast, we went back to north of Toronto where my mom was living in a town called Collingwood. And we had 2 years in a small town figuring it out. And it was really tough. You know, as the pandemic was for a lot of people, it was really, really tough for us. Canada had a lot of lockdowns. There was a lot of restrictions. But the good news was that it gave us sometimes when there's so much change, it gives us the fuel and the fertilizer to grow. And so we knew that we wanted to live somewhere warm. We went back to our list, and it always came back down to Portugal or Costa Rica, as it does for many people. And this is an amazing place to raise a family. So we came down here with my parents to try it out for 3 months, and we all fell in love. And within 2 months, my mom and my stepdad moved back to Canada, went back to Canada and sold their house. And they bought here too. So we are all in.
The whole family is here.
My family is here.
And you moved to Atenas.
And we moved to Atenas.
Okay. And this is the first place you landed.
Yeah. Yeah, we did it. So like, you're not supposed to do it this way at all. You're supposed to live in Costa Rica for a year. You're supposed to live in all these different,
check out the
climate regions. Yeah. We were like, it literally says best climate in the world. So why would we, why would we go anywhere else?
Right. Atenas is the town. For those of you not from this area, Atenas is the town. It's about 35 minutes up the hill. And they call themselves El Mejor Clima del Mundo, the best climate in the world. I think that was given by National Geographic at some point. And they run with it.
Oh,
it's
they
like
do.
Bar Mejor Clima, La Clima Mejor Clima.
It's everywhere. It's on the buses. It's like on any brochures.
And it really is a very nice climate.
It's lovely.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's like, today's actually nice and cool right now, but like, it gets a little hotter here. It's generally about 10 degrees cooler Fahrenheit, 10 degrees cooler up there.
And we have time. I mean, there's times like in the mornings we want to put sweatshirts on and stuff. And like, I like that.
You like having
and then in the afternoon you can swim and it's hot. So it's worked well for us. And we also appreciate being close to this community down here with all the amazing eco communities that are here. We still get to participate in some of the events and meet people. And so we're very grateful. It's worked well for us.
Yeah, you guys are here. I guess Justin was saying he goes to Buen Camino quite often, like to work once a week, I think he said. He just sets up.
That's the goal. Yeah, we love it down here.
You don't mind the drive?
Oh my God, it's the best drive. It's so beautiful. Driving down 3, it's just huge, beautiful mountain views, ocean. It's fantastic. So anywhere I go, I try to find, my son and I talk about the little joys. Because there's lots of things in life that could be super annoying if you let it be, but it's like find the little joys. So every time we drive down, I'm just like, wow, like this is amazing. This is God's green earth. This is incredible.
And since you mentioned your son, you have you have 2 kids, right?
No, I have one.
Just one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right, it is just one.
It's one. We are thinking maybe another one wants to come through. We're going to see.
I'm intuiting. Yeah. I'm intuiting here.
And may it be so.
If God willing. Si Dios quiere.
Just with all the world watching. Thank you for all your support, everyone, for this very personal thing that we, it would be really cool. No, it's okay. It's one of those things where it's like, it's such a big decision, to upset our lives and have another kid. But it would be nice if that happened. So
okay.
we'll let you know.
We're all pulling
Episode
for
2.
You. Episode 2, right? So you have a son?
I have Caden. Yeah, Caden is 6 and he's amazing. He's learning how to speak Spanish. When he meets someone who's Spanish speaking, he picks it up immediately and just starts talking to them in Spanish, which I love.
¿Y tú hablas español?
Poco, sí, poco a poco, yo practicando.
Estás practicando. And you've only been here for like, what, a year then?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it has been 2. Okay, yeah, time is moving fast.
As it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've been here 2 years. I think I met you at Larry's 70th birthday party.
Okay.
That's where I remember connecting with you.
Yeah, totally.
Maybe we had met one time before or something, but that's where I remember, I just remember seeing you and your mom dancing together.
Yeah.
We used to have this funk, like a kind of a funk cover band, and you guys are out there getting down. And
oh, yes.
I was like, I want to know that person. You just have this big smile. And
we love to dance.
Yeah.
My mom loves to dance. She's very creative, and I definitely get my poetry streak from her, and a lot of my creativity comes from her, and as well as my dad.
She's also got that kind of power woman, don't fuck with me attitude. I've met your
in the nicest way, but
totally.
She gets shit done.
I could see she's got that I wouldn't want to mess with your mom.
No.
This is not
Yeah. There's some stories I can tell for sure. But she's also really cool and really compassionate, which she's been an amazing mom. So
you're kind of still kind of new to Costa Rica then, sort of.
Yes, definitely. I was thinking about this on the car on the way here, that Costa Rica is this amazing, amazing place to live. And also we need to give ourselves grace as we transition here, because for me, I have a frequency that matches very well with an environment like New York. And coming here.
Wow.
Yeah. So energetically to slow down to this degree is work for me, and it's a process, and it's taken me time to get used to it, and I'm still getting used to it. But to give ourselves that room as we transition to this amazing life, that even when everything looks amazing all around us, it's okay to struggle. It's okay to have challenging days and to feel out of sorts, and to feel because I definitely in the past would feel guilty. How dare I have any discomfort or feelings of challenge in this environment? It's so beautiful. But actually the human experience is that it's multiple things happening at the same time.
Yeah. And it's true. And that frequency, you mentioned your frequency, it's more attuned. What? Because you like having the buzzing of the city and all the things and all the options. And...
I don't know. When I land in New York, I pop up out of the subway and I just feel fuck yeah. I'm just energized by it. And I love pounding down the street. I love cute outfits. So I wear my cute layers, and I've got my bag, and I'm just yeah. And I'm going through the crowds, and it just feeds my soul in a way. Whereas here I'm okay, I'm just going to touch a lot of trees. And that's going to be as if they're people because there's not as many people here. I'm just going to slow down. I'm going to sit and put my feet in the river. I do that a lot when I'm down in this area, and just allow myself to slow down and see how that feels.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a big transition. Yeah.
It is.
New York City to Atenas.
Yes. It's concrete jungle to jungle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Atenas is I don't even, to me, that's even that's a population up there. Here down here, we're much more.
Yeah.
But, well, let's talk about you also. Just the most exciting thing is you just released a poetry album.
Yes.
What inspired you to create a poetry album?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'll tell you how it all came to be. When we went back to Canada to pack up our stuff and to move down here officially, I was going through my stuff and I found these magazine clippings that I had cut out with the intention of making maybe like a vision board or something. And I saw it was all these women's magazines with all these like motivational kind of titles. So I cut all of these motivational titles and a few other words out, and I made a poem out of it. And it was a cool little poem. I was like, oh, it's so cool. I'm going to post it, So I posted it on Instagram, and somebody who, I don't know if he was following me at this time, but our paths were crossing on social, named Spec Turner, saw this and was like, let's put it to music. And that's how it began. We found each other on social media. I think I was following his niece, who's an activist, and she's amazing. And so he started to show me some options of what he had in mind. And I was like, that's cool, but like, what about house music?
Wow.
And he was like, okay. And so we started to talk about what this could look like. And I realized, because he very early on was like, rather than just one poem, would you want to do an album? And I was like, yeah, let's try it. I've never done anything like this. I'm in a totally transitional time in my life. Why not? And so I realized if I had the opportunity to put an album out into the world, there's a lot of cool things and witty poems and different things that I could share. And I love that kind of work.
Things that you've written.
Things that I've written, yeah. I've been writing music and poetry like my whole life. So I have tons of stuff that I've just never done anything with because I've always written it for myself and not really shared it. And I'm just coming into a space in my life of really sharing myself with the world, which is a new space and feels really good. I'm really grateful for all the support that I've gotten here through that process. I knew that with this album, I wanted to specifically talk about the things that are difficult in our world to talk about and that are very meaningful and that I think we need to talk about. So I want us to have more conversations about racism. I want us to have more conversations about class and privilege and what does it mean to hold various forms of privilege and what can we do with that? And knowing that, how does that shape our future? And so I wanted to use this as an opportunity to speak about the things that are really important, that I think we're here in Costa Rica, we can kind of live in our own magical bubbles in a way. And anywhere in the world, you can kind of create that. You can create your own bubble where you're really only focused on your daily life, because being human is fucking hard. Like being a human and just existing, I would like us to acknowledge more.
I know.
Yeah.
Being a human is fucking hard.
It is. It's really messy. It's so messy. Like we're these amazing spiritual beings come down to have a physical experience. And then we're like, what the fuck? Like hormones, taxes,
right?
Like interpersonal relationships. It's so much. So I think that we have these messages in our culture to like pretend everything's fine all the time. I don't want to do that. I want to be really real. I want to be real with each other and I want to be real with my work. So Spec was totally on board to shift the direction to this sort of more politically leaning poetry. And Prophet's Loss is 6 tracks, 5 of which are set to music by Spec. And he did an amazing job. He was very collaborative with me, allowing me to give guidance on what kind of songs I was picturing, like what music I was picturing in the background. And I think it's Lessons from Fear. It starts with clapping. It's just me clapping in the bathroom. Me being like, hey, Spec, what do you think about this? And he's like, yeah, let's use it. And just like finding our way. So
I just started listening to some of the tracks and it's like really beautifully produced, by the way.
Thank you.
Like it sounds amazing. I was like, wow. And your voice sounds incredible.
Thank you.
I went to your poetry, the event, which was like kind of your release party.
Yeah.
And of course, these days no one has CDs, so it was no physical product, but it was like, and you didn't have Spec or you didn't have any backup tracks. You just did it a cappella. So it was cool. I got to really focus on the words. And also I really enjoyed listening to the tracks because it's like, there's a,
with the music, it's different. It has a different experience and it's unique. There's starting to be more poetry set to music. It used to be this very sort of jazz style music in the background. And so we wanted to take that idea, but go in a slightly different direction.
Have you ever listened to John Trudell?
No.
Oh, man.
Send it to me.
Please listen to John Trudell. John Trudell's, I got to work with him a little bit before he passed. He was the head of the American Indian movement for a lot of years and just an amazing poet and always had an amazing band behind him. There's a really good movie about him called Trudell, by the way. I recommend it. And he had I can't remember the name of the guitarist, but played with Bob Dylan, was his lead guitar player. Poet. That was kind of my intro to like poetry with music. I was kind of first I was kind of like, poetry, like it works. It's amazing actually when it's done right.
Yeah.
So yeah, good job.
Thanks.
Profits loss.
Thank you.
Will you share one of your poems? Will you be willing to share?
Sure.
Maybe we'll do one here, and we'll save another one for the.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. Let's do, I feel like Lessons from Fear. Let's see if I can remember all of it. It's a longer one.
Okay, yeah, you got them all memorized. Like, sorry, I'm kind of putting you on the spot here.
No, that's okay. Well, this is it. I mean, the whole point of this is to share these words, and then hopefully there's some inspiration. People can have conversation. I had amazing, stories of families coming up to me after the event saying, like, we've been talking about this with our kids, and it's powerful. So I'm grateful to share some words today. This is Lessons from Fear. Fear doesn't come from no place. It comes from a place. Shine a light on the place, not to blind or erase, but to embrace it, make space for it, and then do an about face. Learn the lessons or be chased by the lying edifice, fumbling in haste, stumbling in the race, crumbling in its face, only if you don't remember that you are love in the first place. Nothing goes to waste. Circling the same space, you might find a new face. Shine a light from this new place. The child has not been replaced, but been grown around by a grown-up who forgets to remember they, them are grace, and that fear is the tail to the coin's face. In this life, it's commonplace. Oh, sorry. I totally got lost there with the little bug in my face.
Is that part of the poem?
That is now.
Got a bug in my face.
I'll skip to the last.
They, them
last
is grace.
Verse. They, them
I got a
is
bug
grace.
in my face.
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes there is just a bug in your face, and that's okay. Fear has been used to create race and deny queer kids a safe space and define where lies a woman's place. Fear is the currency of displacement, and that separation is a disgrace. Fear can arise naturally, but to capitalize on humanity's capacity to fight, freeze, or flee is to use fear monetarily. Why fight with our human family and flee from all adversity and freeze if we feel uncomfortably about what's outside the hegemony when those hard truths will set us free? Shift happens. Gradually, there's more than enough for everybody. We can heal humanity when we reach past fear to finally see the work to heal begins with me.
Yeah.
There it is.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Amazing. And that's Profit Sauce. And so people can go and listen to the produced version of that.
Yes.
On where?
It's available everywhere where you stream music. So it's available on iTunes, Tidal, Spotify, YouTube,
Apple Music.
Your support is so appreciative. Appreciated, I should say. Any interaction is very helpful for the algorithm to know, hey, maybe people like this, and they'll start pushing it to more people. So any thumbs up and downloads and any of that is amazingly helpful as we are on this journey of promoting the album. So thank you.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, and what's next? Just a quick, we have 2 minutes left. What's next for Robin Shaw?
Well, this year for the poetry, this year is about promoting the album. We're hoping to create opportunities for me to speak in some more larger political spaces. And I would really like to help be a voice for change. So that is one of my missions. The other thing that I'm doing is I've started a coaching practice. And that has been an amazing journey from not knowing what the hell I was doing to this very for anyone who knows Parsifal's story of a guy who leaves home, goes on this huge, long, epic journey and then comes back home. He's like, oh, everything I needed was right here. Mm-hmm. So it's been a journey like that for me I've been informally coaching my whole life And now I'm making it into a business. Yeah. And having streamlined practices. So I'm starting to work with people to help with their own transformation, to help with their relationships, to help with their spaces and how they present themselves to the world has been a huge honor. So that's one focus. And then getting out there and fucking banging that drum and keep making change.
Well, thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
And so if people want to follow your, get a hold of you for coaching.
Thank you. Let's see. I mean, my website is Robin X Shaw.
Robin X Shaw.
Yeah, with an X. Justin and I like the X. I don't know. It's just like a design thing. It's kind of like, because it can be like to multiply, but it's also, I don't know.
Robin times Shaw.
Yes, it's something. Yeah. And
.com?
.com.
RobinXShaw.com.
Yeah. Okay. And Instagram is Robin X Shaw as well. So that's easy to find. But yeah, I would love to connect with anybody who's looking for some support, and also just to talk about music and poetry and life and how it's fucking hard, but also beautiful, and what can we do about it? So
it's amazing. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Robin. Will you be willing to share another poem on our page for our Patreon afterwards?
Yeah, totally.
So we're going to film that as soon as we're done here. Robin Shaw, Robin X Shaw, thank you for being on La Vida Verde podcast.
Thank you so much for having me here today.
I am your host, Matthew Human, and we release episodes every Tuesday at noon. You can find it on YouTube if you want to see us, or you can listen on Spotify and Apple, all those places she mentioned earlier, wherever you get your podcast. We appreciate you sharing and liking and doing all that. It's a good reminder. The interactions is like really good.
It helps so much.
It totally does. We are on Instagram at La Vida Verde Podcast. No, Instagram at Finca Vida Verde CR. We are on Facebook, Finca Vida Verde. You can follow our Patreon if you like this kind of content. Really helps us if you support us. Patreon.com/La Vida Verde podcast, where we have a number of our guests are willing to offer like kind of extra little clips and things that we had to cut for time for the conversation, but like follow-up questions and so it's a great way to support us and get great content. So thank you. Also, I want to say shout out to Ecotea's Yerba Mate. Thank you so much for sponsoring us with good mate, keeping me juiced.
Yum.
And we'll see you next time. Pura vida.
Pura vida.